I was still smoking cigarettes. And God, it took me 6 months to get to the point where I didn't have to like sneak out of the temple and go around the corner and light one up. You know, I had a pack stashed in 2 or 3 different trees, you know, and I'd like, you know, I'd just make sure nobody was watching, you know, and grab it and light up, you know, nicotine, you know. It took me 6 months to get to the point where I could go through a whole day and not have to smoke. And I knew smoking is bad. No question about it. I was real clear on that.
You were captured.
But I was addicted.
Yeah.
And so the momentum of the physical needs and conditioning that we get, you know, from having to cope with a situation where we don't have access to spiritual pleasure. Yeah. Like I was saying, if we don't have self-realization, or if we don't have access to Krishna directly, or if we don't think we do, actually we do, but if we think we don't, then it's like we have to make the best of what we have available here in the world. And so we mock up this whole story, this whole rationalization that, oh yeah, you know, this love, this sex, this pleasure, this food, this stuff, this money, this power, all this stuff. Oh yeah, this is great. You know, this is what I need. Yeah, this is going to do it. You know, it's like we have to have that false hope because it's better than having no hope at all. That would be terrible. That would be like suicide time. You know? So what we do is we make up this whole story, which is called the material ontology, and we convince ourselves that the illusion is the reality, and that there's nothing else. We go into denial about our actual identity and our actual nature. So when we finally come in contact with the truth, it's like, oh, wait a minute. Does that? And I get people give me the funniest reactions. One guy was saying, what was it? He was saying, oh, does this mean that I have to like completely give up all my relationships with everybody and just go off by myself and only chant? You know? And I was saying, no, come on. You know, there has to be a balance. Especially in the beginning, it's a gradual process. It's not like, you know, you just jump into some like ideal state where all of a sudden you don't need anybody. It means that we gradually purify ourselves to the point where we can concentrate on the holy name for long enough to actually realize it. And then after that, we may go out into the world and do various things, you know. Like it took me 30 years to get to the point where I could sit down and chant for 6 months straight and realize the holy name. And then after that, I went here and there and I did this and that. And I talked to all kinds of people and had all kinds of activities to try to share that knowledge. But there was no question that the center of my existence shifted at that point from the material world to the spiritual world. And everything up to that point was like just developing the preconditions so that could happen. And after that experience, after seeing Krishna, after Krishna revealed himself to me, it was like there was no going back. You know, there's no way I'm ever going to forget that. No way that I could ever change or would even want to change the shift in the point of view from the material world to the spiritual world. The thing is, I know now for a fact that all of us are capable of making that shift. So when I speak about my view of the material world being like, you know, a bunch of worthless crap, it's because I have something better. It's not because I'm trying to sell you something. You know, it's because I'm trying to give you something. And the thing that I'm trying to give you is so wonderful. It's so valuable, it's so pure, it's so beautiful, that there's nothing in this world that can compare to it. So when I talk about these things, it sounds shocking in the beginning because it's like, well, wait a minute, what is he saying? Does it mean that everything I think is important or valuable or beautiful or pleasurable is just nothing? You know, and in the beginning it's like a shock. It's like you lose your havingness, you lose your sense of that I've got enough, you know, to make me satisfied. Because that's what we've been telling ourselves. That's a story we've been making up about this material existence. That, yeah, somehow I'm going to make it. I'm going to make that $1 million bucks. You know, I'm going to get that perfect relationship. I'm going to somehow or other, you know, I'm going to make it. I'm going to find fulfillment and pleasure. You know, because like I said, it's better to have a false hope than have no hope at all. But then when the real hope comes, oh, just by changing my point of view from the material world to the spiritual world, I can know unlimited spiritual pleasure, eternal spiritual unconditional love. That can be mine, that could be my life, that could be my consciousness. You know, when that first comes up, what it looks like is, oh shit, I'm going to have to give up everything. You know, but why does a spiritual minded person give up everything in the material world? It's because they've discovered something better. They wouldn't be able to otherwise. There's a nice shloka in Srimad Bhagavatam that talks about how the soul, when it's time to leave this body and go to the next body, you know, you ever see a plant worm? Those little green worms that they have feet in the back and feet in the front, you know, and they'll stand on the leaf and they'll kind of poke around and they'll find a new leaf, and then they'll fix their legs on the new leaf, and once they're established there, then they'll bring the other end over. Like that? Yeah. Well, that's described. That's how the soul changes bodies. It's like we don't leave one body until we already have our next body. We already have a connection with our next body.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's described like that. Well, that's the real meaning of that yang yang vapi smaran bhava shloka in Bhagavad Gita. That at the time of death, or near the time of death, it's like we make a summation of where we are at. What are our experiences, what are our values, what are our desires, what are our qualifications, you know, where are we going from here? Where have I been and where am I going? Like we make this big evaluation, a watershed moment in our life. And then we see, well, I know I'm going to have to give up this body soon, so where am I going in the next life? You know, and really it boils down to what is the sum total of impressions that I've managed to glean from this life.
Yeah, the average, isn't it? Right, the RMS value of the impression?
Like the RMS value, exactly. So what we look at that time is, you know, like how good of a deal can I get? You know I got to sell my car and get a new one.
Yeah.
So, you know, what about the payments and the insurance and my income and my credit? We take all those factors into account. What's the best deal that I can get? You know, so it's like we're negotiating with God almost, you know, at that point.
Yeah.
So when we do that, when we look at our life and we see, well, what do I really want? Where have I been? Where am I going? What can I get? You know, what can I do? Once we have that connection with Krishna, it's like we can talk with Krishna, you know, like about what do I want to do with the rest of my eternity, you know, and we can get a situation from Krishna that we could actually stand to have for an eternity. So let's say that we had the ability to negotiate with Krishna. Any kind of situation, any kind of conditions for our existence in the future. But the caveat is, we would have to be in that condition for eternity. What would we ask for? And I want to tell you that you can have that. Krishna has the resources. Krishna has the ability to give you that. And the only catch is, it has to be in relationship with Him. It has to serve His purposes somehow. Other than that, there's no limitation. Anything you want.
How would it serve its purpose?
Well, you have to understand Krishna. You have to know Krishna. You know, it's just like if I wanted to know, you know, how could I make a business, or how could I make an offer that would serve your purposes? I'd have to get to know you.
Yeah.
Wouldn't I? You'd have to reveal yourself to me.
Right.
You know, somehow or other. So Krishna has revealed Himself already in the scriptures. And if we engage in a personal dialogue with Him through the medium of the mantra, He will reveal Himself to us personally. We enter into a dialogue with Him. This is Paramatma realization.
Yeah.
You see, there's three stages. tat vidi pranipratena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnanadas tattvadarshana. Now the person who knows the truth can show us the truth if we approach him with inquiries and service. So the spiritual master does that, and he gives you the tools to approach Krishna. And Krishna is realized in three phases. The phases are Brahman, Paramatma, and Paraman. Brahman realization is when we realize, I'm not a material being, I'm a spiritual entity. Paramatma is when we realize the presence of God within our heart, and we open up this dialogue with him. And then between reading the scriptures and by this personal dialogue with Krishna, we come to know him as a person. You know, just like if we sat here and talked, not just for a couple of days, but for a couple of years,
Yeah.
we would get to know each other really well.
Right.
So then I would